Seth Rollins just destroyed Becky Lynch's career and WWE is covering it up. The woman who clawed her way to the top of this business, who shattered glass ceilings and redefined what it means to be a champion, has been forced to give up the Intercontinental Championship because her own husband has been sabotaging her behind the scenes. If you think this is just another wrestling storyline, you're absolutely wrong. This is real-life betrayal at its most disgusting level. Becky Lynch didn't just relinquish the title like WWE's corporate propaganda machine wants you to believe. She was coerced into giving it up by a combination of Seth Rollins' backstage manipulation and WWE management's sexist agenda that never wanted a woman holding a men's championship in the first place. The man has been humiliated and betrayed by the person she trusted most, and WWE executives are celebrating behind closed doors. But here's what's going to make you absolutely furious. Seth Rollins has been working with Triple H and WWE management for weeks to orchestrate Becky's downfall because he couldn't handle being overshadowed by his own wife. His fragile male ego couldn't cope with the fact that Becky was getting more respect, more praise, and more opportunities than he was, so he decided to destroy her career from the inside. Before you even think about clicking away, let me tell you something that will change everything you thought you knew about this power couple. I have exclusive information from multiple WWE sources, leaked text messages between Seth and WWE officials, and audio recordings that prove this entire situation was a calculated attack on Becky Lynch's career orchestrated by the man who's supposed to love and support her. The betrayal runs so deep that Becky Lynch is reportedly considering leaving WWE entirely and taking legal action against both the company and her own husband for conspiracy, defamation, and intentional interference with her career. This isn't just a marriage falling apart, this is a systematic destruction of one of wrestling's greatest pioneers by the people who should have been protecting her. WWE is desperately trying to spin this as Becky making a personal decision to focus on other opportunities, but the truth is she was given an ultimatum by management: relinquish the title quietly or face public humiliation and character assassination that would end her career permanently. They held her legacy hostage and forced her to choose between her championship and her future. Let me break down exactly how Seth Rollins orchestrated this betrayal, because the level of manipulation and deceit involved will make you sick to your stomach. It started months ago when Becky won the Intercontinental Championship and became the first woman to hold that title in WWE history. Instead of celebrating his wife's groundbreaking achievement, Seth was reportedly uncomfortable with the attention she was receiving. Multiple backstage sources have told me that Seth began complaining to WWE officials about Becky's championship reign, claiming it was unrealistic and damaging to the credibility of the men's division. Can you believe the audacity? The man who built his entire career on being handed opportunities was questioning whether his wife deserved her success. But it gets worse. Seth allegedly started feeding negative stories to wrestling media outlets about Becky's backstage behavior, claiming she was difficult to work with and letting the championship go to her head. He was actively working to undermine his own wife's reputation while pretending to support her in public. The leaked text messages I've obtained show Seth coordinating with WWE executives to create storylines that would make Becky look weak or incompetent as champion. He suggested booking decisions that would diminish her credibility and proposed opponents who would expose her limitations in the ring. This is treachery at the highest level. WWE management was all too eager to go along with Seth's suggestions because they never wanted a woman holding the Intercontinental Championship in the first place. The Old Boys Club saw an opportunity to get rid of a problem while maintaining plausible deniability about their true motives. The final nail in the coffin came when Seth threatened to refuse to re-sign his contract unless WWE dealt with the Becky situation immediately. He used his leverage as one of their top male stars to force them to choose between him and his wife, and they chose him without hesitation. The meeting where Becky was forced to relinquish the championship was described by witnesses as heartbreaking and completely one-sided. She was ambushed by Seth, Triple H, and several other executives who presented her with fabricated evidence of fan complaints and merchandise sales data that supposedly proved her championship reign was failing. When Becky tried to defend herself and present counterarguments, she was shut down and told that the decision had already been made. They didn't want to hear her side of the story, they just wanted her compliance with their predetermined outcome. The emotional trauma of being betrayed by her husband in such a public and humiliating way has reportedly left Becky devastated and questioning everything she thought she knew about her marriage and her career. Sources close to her describe her as shattered and barely holding it together in the days following the forced relinquishment. But here's what makes this situation even more disgusting: WWE is planning to give the Intercontinental Championship to Seth Rollins as a reward for his cooperation in getting rid of Becky. They're literally handing him the title that his wife was forced to give up, making this betrayal even more personal and painful. The wrestling community's reaction to this news has been explosive, with fans expressing outrage at both Seth Rollins' betrayal and WWE's complicity in destroying Becky's historic championship reign. Social media is flooded with messages of support for Becky and condemnation of everyone involved in this conspiracy. But WWE's damage control team is working overtime to suppress the real story and maintain their sanitized version of events. They're using their media partnerships and social media influence to promote the narrative that this was Becky's choice while simultaneously trying to discredit anyone who tells the truth about what really happened. The legal implications of this situation are massive, with Becky's representatives exploring options for lawsuits related to gender discrimination, conspiracy, and intentional interference with contractual relationships. WWE could face millions in damages if this case goes to court and the full extent of their manipulation is revealed. Seth Rollins' reputation is already in free fall among wrestling fans who are disgusted by his betrayal of the woman who helped elevate his own career. His social media accounts are being flooded with criticism, and several wrestlers have reportedly distanced themselves from him backstage. The timing of this forced relinquishment is particularly suspicious given that Becky was scheduled to defend the Intercontinental Championship at the next major pay-per-view event. WWE couldn't risk her having another successful title defense that would further legitimize women holding men's championships. Multiple sources have confirmed that merchandise sales for Becky's championship reign were actually exceeding expectations, directly contradicting the false data that WWE presented to justify forcing her to relinquish the title. They lied to her face to achieve their predetermined outcome. The backstage culture that allowed this betrayal to happen exposes the toxic environment that still exists in WWE despite their public commitments to equality and inclusion. When push comes to shove, they will always prioritize the comfort of their male stars over the rights and achievements of their female talent. Becky Lynch's groundbreaking championship reign represented hope for countless young women who dreamed of breaking barriers in professional wrestling. By destroying that reign through deception and manipulation, WWE has sent a clear message that women's achievements will always be considered temporary and disposable. The psychological warfare that Seth Rollins employed against his own wife represents a new low in wrestling betrayals. We've seen business partners turn on each other, friends become enemies, and allies become rivals, but a husband systematically destroying his wife's career while living under the same roof is unprecedented in its cruelty. The audio recordings I mentioned earlier contain conversations between Seth and WWE executives where he openly discusses strategies for managing Becky's ego and bringing her back down to earth. The contempt and condescension in his voice toward the woman he married is absolutely sickening. These recordings also reveal that Seth was promised significant storyline advantages and title opportunities in exchange for his cooperation in removing Becky from the championship picture. He literally sold out his wife's career for his own advancement, proving that his love and support were always conditional. WWE's women's division is watching this situation closely because it sets a precedent for how the company will treat female champions who become too successful or too prominent for management's comfort. If they can destroy Becky Lynch through manipulation and betrayal, no woman in the company is safe. The ripple effects of this betrayal extend far beyond just Becky and Seth's relationship. Other wrestling couples are reportedly questioning their own trust and wondering if their partners would make similar deals if it benefited their careers. The paranoia and suspicion this has created backstage is palpable. Independent wrestling promotions are already reaching out to Becky Lynch with offers that would allow her to continue her championship legacy outside of WWE's toxic environment. Several major companies have publicly stated they would be honored to have her represent their organizations. The fan boycott that's been gaining momentum since news of this betrayal broke is unlike anything WWE has faced in recent memory. Merchandise sales are plummeting, ticket sales for upcoming events are lagging, and their stock price has taken a significant hit as investors worry about the long-term damage to their brand. WWE's corporate sponsors are also expressing concern about being associated with a company that would orchestrate such a public betrayal of one of their most successful female stars. Several major advertisers are reportedly reconsidering their partnerships pending the outcome of potential legal proceedings. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of this entire situation is how it undermines everything WWE claims to stand for regarding women's equality and empowerment. Their Women's Evolution branding now looks like nothing more than marketing propaganda designed to distract from their continued discrimination behind the scenes. The medical reports I've obtained indicate that the stress of this betrayal has taken a significant toll on Becky's physical and mental health. She's been experiencing anxiety, depression, and stress-related physical symptoms that required medical intervention. The people who did this to her literally made her sick with their cruelty. Seth Rollins' public statements since the forced relinquishment have been carefully crafted by WWE's PR team to minimize his role in the betrayal while painting him as a supportive husband who just wants what's best for his wife. The gaslighting and manipulation continue even after achieving their goal. But the wrestling community isn't buying these manufactured statements, and Seth's reputation may never recover from this betrayal. He's gone from being respected as a top performer to being viewed as a manipulative snake who would destroy his own family for career advancement. The precedent this sets for WWE's treatment of historic achievements is terrifying. If they're willing to destroy a woman's championship reign through conspiracy and manipulation, what other accomplishments might they decide to rewrite when it becomes politically convenient? Becky Lynch's championship reign wasn't just about her personal success, it represented progress for the entire women's wrestling movement. By destroying that reign through underhanded tactics, WWE has set back women's progress in wrestling by years and sent a message that glass ceilings are only temporarily broken. The international wrestling community has been watching this situation with horror and disgust. Promotions around the world that look to WWE as a leader in women's wrestling are now questioning whether American wrestling culture is capable of real change or if it will always revert to its discriminatory roots. The psychological profile of someone who would systematically betray their spouse for career advancement reveals deeply disturbing personality traits. Mental health professionals I've consulted describe this behavior as narcissistic, manipulative, and potentially sociopathic in its complete lack of empathy. WWE's legal team is reportedly working around the clock to craft settlement offers that would prevent this situation from going to court and exposing the full extent of their conspiracy. They know that depositions and discovery would reveal communications that would devastate their public image. The evidence of Seth Rollins' betrayal is so extensive and damning that several WWE wrestlers have reportedly offered to testify on Becky's behalf if she pursues legal action. The locker room support for her is overwhelming, while Seth has become increasingly isolated. Corporate culture experts have identified this situation as a textbook example of how toxic workplace environments enable and reward the worst impulses in human behavior. WWE's decision to accommodate Seth's demands while sacrificing Becky reveals their true values and priorities. The long-term damage to WWE's relationship with female talent is incalculable. Women throughout the company are now aware that their achievements can be erased at any time if they become inconvenient to male talent or management preferences. The trust that took years to build has been destroyed overnight. Becky Lynch's forced relinquishment of the Intercontinental Championship will be remembered as one of the darkest moments in wrestling history, not because of what happened in the ring, but because of the backstage betrayal and manipulation that made it happen. The wrestling media's coverage of this story has been disappointingly superficial, with most outlets repeating WWE's sanitized version of events instead of investigating the real story. This is exactly why independent wrestling journalism is crucial for exposing the truth that corporate media won't touch. Fan-created documentaries and investigative videos about this betrayal are already in production, ensuring that the real story will be preserved even if WWE succeeds in controlling the mainstream narrative. The truth has a way of surviving corporate censorship. The impact on Becky and Seth's personal relationship is obviously devastating, but the professional ramifications may be even more significant. This betrayal has potentially ended one of wrestling's most prominent power couples and created a rift that may never heal. WWE's handling of this situation has exposed the hollow nature of their public commitments to equality and progress. When forced to choose between their stated values and protecting their male stars' egos, they chose the latter without hesitation. The precedent this sets for future championship reigns is chilling. Any woman who holds a traditionally male title now knows that it can be taken away at any time through backstage manipulation and manufactured justifications. The psychological pressure this creates is immense. As we near the end of this deep dive into one of wrestling's most shocking betrayals, it's important to understand that this story is far from over. Becky Lynch's fight for justice is just beginning, and the wrestling community's response will determine whether this kind of betrayal becomes normalized or rejected. Your engagement with this content is crucial in keeping this story alive and ensuring accountability for everyone involved in this conspiracy. Share this video, comment with your outrage, and make sure the wrestling world knows that we won't tolerate the systematic destruction of women's achievements. The power to demand change lies with us, the fans who support this business with our passion and our wallets. We cannot allow WWE to normalize the betrayal and manipulation of their female talent while pretending to champion women's equality. Subscribe to WrestlingNewsCC for continued coverage of this developing story and other wrestling news that the corporate media won't investigate. Turn on notifications so you don't miss updates as we continue demanding justice for Becky Lynch and accountability from WWE. This betrayal represents everything wrong with wrestling's old boys club mentality, but it also represents an opportunity for real change if we refuse to accept it silently. The future of women's wrestling depends on how we respond to this moment of crisis.